Hi, Chris.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm very excited to be speaking with you about Monstrous.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be speaking with you.
I love this film. I just
That's
love it.
awesome.
It is
Good.
so beautiful to look at, number one. Your cinematography, Senda cinematography is stunning. And that married
Yeah,
with
she's extremely talented.
and marrying that in concert with the production design. I'm familiar with Mars's work for what he did with Ty Roberts for The Iron Orchard. And Mars does really good period work. And I see that here with the 1950s look. And then you've got Morgan DeGroff's costuming. Those three married together are just lush and rich and gorgeous and really put us into Laura's mindset.
Absolutely, yeah. Like they were a dream team of collaborators, and just all of them just worked so hard. Because we're obviously kind of a low budget movie, and so they really had to be super creative, and they just really believed in the project and just really gave it their all. So I was like, once I got that team of collaborators together, it's like, it was like just getting started off on the right foot. Because I agree, their work is gorgeous.
Oh my God. And I hate to tell you this, but this does not look like a low budget, no budget, micro budget film. This is rich. It is lush. There are sumptuous scenes in here. It looks expensive.
Oh, good. That's what we were going for.
You definitely achieved that.
Yeah. The period was always daunting, but it turned out to be just so rewarding to really, put all of our heads together and get as detailed as possible as we could with it to come up with like the most beautiful aesthetic that we could.
Well, you really did, and this is where Mars's work, the production design of Laura's house, is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And then the set dress with all of the accoutrements that are on her dressing table in the bedroom, the little crystal perfume bottles, the lighting tone that Senda brings in with the pale pinks in the bedroom, contrasted with the vibrancy of Laura's clothes that Morgan has brought in. And then all those touches with the set dress, the dial telephone. My favorite item in the house, though, was the Daniel Green slipper box, because I can't tell you how many of those were always around our house, because that's all my mother bought for slippers were the Daniel Green, and they always had to stay in the box. You took them out and put them back
That's
in.
awesome.
So everything is so authentic, Chris. And
thank you.
And it really, that's what puts us in the mindset to let this story take off. And the story, what you do, the ambiguity that you create, and I think this is where Senda's lensing also comes into play. It's almost as if Christina Ricci's Laura is being lensed at time almost with a skewed fisheye lens to give us a very disorienting. Is she imagining things? What's going on? I'm getting, a Sixth Sense vibe happening here in the film as it's going forward. And then you bring in the horror aspect of this gorgeous liquidity, almost like silver mercury that's black, going through the house and taking shape. How challenging was it to construct this visual tonal bandwidth so that it would complement the emotion and the thematics of the script?
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge, but it was like a really enjoyable challenge in a way. But I think you kind of hit on it with alluding to, kind of the kind of always looks back to the emotional core of Laura and what she's going through and her mindset, and then kind of tried to build everything out from there. We looked at a lot of 1950s advertisements and catalogs, and that was a really good, really good inspiration for all of us. There's actually, the Hot Point commercial that kind of repeats throughout the movie, almost like a mantra in her head. And advertising, I feel like in the 50s, it was kind of like the birth of modern advertising, which still continues today. When advertising is showing people this kind of illusion of perfection that maybe they could attain if they just have all the right stuff. And Laura is almost kind of trapped in this world where she's expected to be perfect, and she's expected to look the right way and to live in the right sort of home and to act the right way when she has so much emotion going on inside of herself, so much emotion that she's not able to express. So we were always trying to, all of the details, the great details that the team was able to achieve that you're bringing up, they would usually always kind of start with conversations about Laura and what she's going through, so that we could build this world around her, in which, we were so lucky to have Christina as, the center of our little movie universe. So we were trying to create this world for her to just shine in. And again, she's so great at digging into all these different emotions. So that was really kind of like the foundation of all of our talks, of how we were going to construct it, including down to the visual effects that you're touching upon, how those visual effects can be representative of what's going on with her emotionally.
It just piggybacks so beautifully. And I mean, Christina is perfectly cast as Laura, and she brings almost a Stepford-like persona to her with the everything is perfect, the 1950s housewife, very much the Stepford remake, the bright kaleidoscopic candy-colored one.
Yeah.
With Glenn
Close.
Close.
That's tapping into that kind of advertising to where that illusion of perfection, and she's burdened with trying to constantly acting like everything's okay when it's clearly not, until she can no longer,
And interestingly, what she also does, she takes her voice up about an octave. She takes her voice up higher.
Yeah. That's cool that you picked up on that, because she's one of those just excellent actors who's able to have such command over her physicality and her voice and her mannerisms, where it's very it's intuitive to her, when to do that. And it's really stunning, because she's been acting every day of her life since she was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And really, just being very conscientious about her craft, and not over intellectualizing it, but always, I feel like I related to her because I feel like she always comes from an emotional kind of place on what kind of intuitively feels right. But yeah, that's cool that you pick up on the little details she's doing, modulating her voice, and just she's able to there's certain expressions that she has or looks that she gives people that just really that I just love so much. Just these little details of her performance, where I was just so lucky to get to work with someone of that caliber. She's just pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, she is phenomenal. When we get into the third act, when she starts breaking down, and all of a sudden the perfect movement is gone, and we start seeing the hand shake and the foot tap a little bit, and she starts looking a little bit not as crisp and starched as her earlier outfits were. It's just these tiny little breakdowns, and thanks to Morgan's costuming and the fabrications that are used for the costumes, you can see when wrinkles start to set in, when the starch is not there. It's because of that very specific fabrication and the color and, the polka dot prints that let you see that. It's not as if you're putting a tweed or a paisley on somebody where it's going to hide wrinkles or little threads hanging or something. So all of that, And it plays in, and Christina just plays into that with her own movement and nuance. And it's just incredible watching her in this role. But then you counter
Yeah.
her with Santino Barnard as Cody. Wow. The contrast between what Christina brings and Santino, because Santino is Cody. It's very physically calm, emotionally calm. Is costuming, the little striped polo shirts, the shorts, very 1950s, but also it'll go through the 60s, 70s for like 10-year-old kids. It works for, it's a multi-decade outfit. But then the makeup artistry makes his skin like a ghostly pallor, a kid who never goes outside and never plays outdoors with anybody. Which,
right, yeah, he's kind of isolated and stuck inside.
Yeah, and it's not like he has a disease.
Stuck with his mom, who he loves, but also butts heads with, you know.
He's always in the house, but he has no disease or anything, so then you start wondering there. All of these little things add ambiguity, Chris, and you've done such a beautiful job in bringing that to life. But for two nighttime nightmare screams that Santino has as Cody, his calm just gets even greater as Laura's nervousness, unsettlement increases. And the way that you have captured that and play it is just brilliant.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, Christina was really great with working with Santino. You know, obviously she, coming from a child actor background, she really related to him, and they created a bond very quickly. And she helped me keep things, you know, playful for him, because even though he's not like playful in most of the movie, you know, when we're making the movie, you know, he's a kid. I don't want him to be stressed out and you know, be taking things too seriously. I want him to be, you know, enjoying himself. So it was funny, like, just between takes, like how they could be having these, you know, emotionally intense, like you said, ambiguous scenes, and then in between takes, you know, just be having fun. And that sense of the bond that they had and the playfulness between them, I think made it, you know, really put Santino at ease. You know, because he has to go, you know, he's a young kid who has to go toe-to-toe with, you know, just a top-notch actress who's had, you know, so much experience and so many skills. And the dynamic between them on and off camera was kind of like this like little magic in a bottle thing that I think, you know, we were lucky enough to have on our side.
It really comes through, Chris. Curious how challenging the editing process was on this one, because you're walking a fine line. You've got horror elements here, but it's not a full-blown horror film. This is more an internalized emotional drama from Laura's POV. So you don't want to lose that, but you also need to introduce the horror element, which you very keenly and smartly, that we go from the liquidity, the black liquidity of a silver mercury into taking shape, identifiable shape. So you never go balls out, what the heck is that? You root us in a degree of reality that is relatable, even in the horror aspect. But that had to be tough to navigate in editing, to find that balance.
Yeah, it was a lot of back and forth in editing, you know, and in every editing, any kind of movie, pacing is always, you know, something that you play around with a lot. And it was especially kind of a tricky kind of needle to thread on this one because of precisely what you're pinpointing, which is the balance between the kind of domestic family drama and the psychological aspects of it with the more overt, you know, genre monster elements. And so there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of experimentation in as far as the timing of how things happened. We, you know, kind of, it was a pretty long editing process, and we kind of slowly but surely kind of worked our way into what felt like, it's almost kind of like, yeah, it's hard to pinpoint when you kind of feel like you finally get into the rhythm, I guess you would say, of what the movie wants to be. It was a lot of back and forth and trying stuff and intercutting stuff and then taking it apart again and putting it back together until we found, like what felt like, oh, this is the natural rhythm that feels right for all the various sorts of elements, some elements kind of conflicting with each other, as you pointed out, to make like a seamless, hopefully seamless whole of what feels like, yeah, this is the right pace. And it's definitely not a pace for everybody. It's, it's kind of a measured pace.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were always aware of that. It's like you can't please all audience members. So we kind of just tried to get the rhythm where it felt right to us for, the emotional kind of, through line that we were going for.
How difficult was it? Because we've got to bear in mind that we've got the Langtrees. Colleen Camp, she's your comic relief. She is the breathing room for us in this film.
Yeah.
And boy, you struck gold when you cast Colleen in this role.
Yeah, she's like a force of nature.
Oh my God.
In.
Everything she does.
Yeah.
And this is perfect because she gives us respite, a momentary respite and levity. But what's very interesting are the Langtrees, and of course Lou Temple's character, Mr. Alonzo, and the other ladies in the office where Laura works. Because you look at all of that, and none of that, number one, the color scheme with all of that is totally contrary to Laura's world and her house and her clothes and her hair and everything. But it's not so different that it sticks out like a sore thumb or appears jarring.
Yeah, that's good.
Was that a challenge for you and Mars, especially, in crafting that? Crafting the farmhouse the Langtrees are in, crafting the office, the school. Was that a challenge or difficult to strike that balance so it's not overtly different? Because
absolutely, yeah, it was, and so we kind of started with like the farmhouse, nailing the look of that, really hammering that down, and we went through a few variations of what it would look like before we kind of landed it on, because we wanted it to be idealistic in a way, but not where it's like straight out of a catalog.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a showroom, but like a 1 foot in that world, but also 1 foot in the world where it's like, yeah, this actually could theoretically be, the interior of a farmhouse. So I guess, trying to strike the balance of that on to be subtle, but not too subtle, or to be overt or not too overt, like that was constantly a tightrope walk. But once we kind of landed on the look of the farmhouse, then like you were saying, we had these other locations to where, she pops out for smaller sections of the movie where we could provide a contrast and have her feel like a little bit of a fish out of water in these other environments. But again, like trying to get the balance to where she does kind of stand out from her environment in these other places, but hopefully not too much to where it's distracting.
No, and I think where you see it really pick up on it is in the office that she works in, because the other girls, and here again, Senda just picks this up so beautifully, and you did a great job with your extras and the look that they give her when she's bright and sunny and she's wearing her yellow polka dot dress and her little sweater, and she comes in and her hair is perfectly coiffed, probably using a whole can of All Set extra hairspray on it so it doesn't move.
Yeah.
But you see the way they look, and somebody comments on her outfit. And that's the kind of comment you get when you're in school, basically telling you look like a dork.
Right.
But
totally.
That one scene speaks so loudly, but does it without screaming at you that, hey, either she's a nut job, she's imagining this, or this whole thing is just up in the air. And I really love that scene for that reason.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. That was actually that everything in the office. That was day one of shooting. That all that stuff with the typing pool, and then we ended the day with her basically quitting her job. You know, like telling her boss off. Which I as soon as I read the script of that scene, I was always very excited because it was like, you know, I just imagined right away how Christina could nail that. But I feel like, we kind of needed to get some of the other sets out of the way before we moved into our farmhouse just for production reasons. And when the team like kind of came together and pulled off that office scene, it kind of like gave us the confidence that we needed. And then ending the day, that first day, with Christina really basically having a monologue,
Yeah.
and telling her boss off, it really, I feel like it set the tone where it's like, okay, you know, we can do this, you know. So it's really cool to hear that you respond to that sequence.
And of course, I would be lying if I didn't say I actually love the touch of the liquid paper that Laura continually uses. So we know it was after 1956 because that's when Mike Nesmith's mother invented it.
Right. Yeah. Carol was who wrote the script was really good about very specific details like that. Little clues or whatnot. There was some other things, kind of anachronistic kind of things that ended up not making the cut because again, it was kind of a fine balance of trying to have things like that, but not go too far with it. I guess it was like kind of like that whole project. I feel like was this kind of dance back and forth between being subtle and overt, I guess, is kind of the best way I could describe it, the shoot.
Well, I got one last question for you, Chris. I'm really curious because I've seen your earlier work. I know Who Killed Me with Julia Ormond and Lindsay Lohan. I've seen Dark Intentions with Ashley Bell. And of course, you were one of the producers on Escape Plan 2, and I'll see any Escape Plan movie and anything with Stallone. But all of your films, be it as a producer, writer, director, you lean into obsession, psychological thrillers, touches of horror. What is the appeal of that to you that keeps you coming back and giving us more?
I feel like those kind of obsessions, like I've always been attracted to that in movies because I feel like, there's all kinds of things that movies as a medium can do really well. And that's one of them. I feel like I always really like the balance in a project, which regardless of the subject matter, the kind of, the meeting of like kind of reality with surrealness. Mm-hmm. And I think movies do that really well. Like movies can be akin to dream states, and always trying to come back to some emotional core. And I think movies, as opposed to like TV or something where it's like a longer form visual story, I think the things like obsession play really well in a movie because you can go through the whole cycle of emotions, in an hour and a half or 2 hours or however long it is, and really go for maximum. You really like play it all out, like put your characters through the ringer and, have the catharsis of seeing them come to the other side, or sometimes they don't come to the other side. Maybe, even if they do survive physically, maybe they're emotionally ruined. But that, I feel like that catharsis I've always been attracted to in movies, as opposed to something, I love TV shows also, but I like the way that movies, just really go, like you said, balls to the wall, and put these characters through the emotional ringer and see them come through on the other side is super, rewarding to me. And so yeah, those kind of like psychological thrillers and just the way of getting inside these characters' head and like ultimately seeing what they're all about. And that's the script of Monstrous had all of that kind of stuff in spades. So as soon as I read it, I just saw like how I could bring my sensibility to it. Like they kind of dovetailed into something that I thought, could work really well.
Well, love the film. I think it is gorgeous to watch. I love the emotionality of it and what unfolds. I want more. I want to see more from you, Chris.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I'm really glad that you responded to the movie.
This one's right up my alley.
Good. I feel like there's like a specific people out there that'll, that this one like will kind of click with. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's great to hear you're one of them.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much, and I hope we get to do this again in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all your great thoughts on the movie.